to Ghouls Night In, the spooky chat show with your best ghoul friends. I'm Penny Snark,
And I'm Midge Munster.
and Midge, would you permit me a brief moment of indulgence? I
As if
have
I don't always.
uh, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore. While I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my
Rapping at my
chamber
chamber
door.
door.
"'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only
Only
this,
this
and
and
nothing
nothing
more."
more.
So this could go either way, but actually, I'm doing an episode about ravens.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know, it's kind of a fake out. Could have been a Poe episode, but it's a raven
Well,
episode.
and I was sitting here thinking, surely she wouldn't do that to me.
No, I would not do that to you.
I'm kidding. You absolutely could have done that.
No, I was thinking about all of the wonderful spooky creatures that we know and love, and I thought let's chat about some ravens.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm a big well, because of my pofinity. I'm a big Raven geek, so I'm excited.
Pofinity, I
My,
love
my,
it.
my pofinity. Uh,
Okay.
I'm excited to hear what you've brought for us.
Yes. So what is a raven? So something that I did not know is that there isn't just one bird that's a raven.
Oh.
There is a variety of species that are within the genus Corvus, and the one most common in America is unsurprisingly called the common raven.
Makes
But
sense.
there are a variety of other ones. So there's just like a bunch of different birds, and apparently they're primarily grouped by being like on the larger end of the spectrum.
Mhm.
Ravens are considered to be like perching in the category of like perching slash songbirds, but they are about the size of a hawk. So like they are the largest of that type of bird.
Big boys.
Big old boys. So ravens are, as many of us know, scavengers. They primarily eat, as the Audubon Society put it, animal matter.
Tasty.
Delicious.
That's almost as nice as flesh arrangement.
Right. They eat insects, they eat rodents, and they eat other baby birds, which is very spooky of them, as well as obviously carrion and garbage. Ravens, so I, of course, had to look up what is the difference between a raven and a crow, because,
I was hoping because I actually don't know.
yes,
I've I I've always kind of wondered, but just never, given it the goog.
yeah, so there are like a variety of like minor differences about like how long their like wing feathers are and stuff. But in general, ravens are significantly larger than crows. Like I said, they're the size of like a hawk, so they're a lot bigger than a crow. Crows caw and ravens croak. They make this kind of ridiculous like sound,
That was a
which
really good crow impression.
thank
Congratulations.
you. And crows are generally in like a larger group, while ravens are generally alone or in pairs.
Yeah, crows like to come in a murder.
They do. I did. So it says most people use the generic flock of ravens, but other collective nouns for raven include rave, rave of
A
ravens,
rave of ravens.
a treachery of ravens,
Ooh,
an unkindness of ravens,
valid.
and a conspiracy of ravens.
I'm picturing them all in like little hooded, like black cloaks. Like
Right?
they're all talking in whispered tones.
They're up to something spooky. Um, but yeah, so like I said, they are often in pairs. They actually are very social and they will like work in pairs when they are hunting. Like apparently one of them will go and like lure a bird out of their nest, and then the other one like goes in and like munches on their eggs and stuff.
Rude.
Rude, but I respect it. They primarily live in forested areas, but they are very adaptable and they can live up in the tundra or they can even live in the desert.
Good job, ravens.
Right? Pretty cool. So, ravens have often been considered an ill omen or a symbol of death throughout history. But in some cultures and in some stories, they are also depicted as linked to prophecy, knowledge, like magic and sorcerers. So those are all pretty cool things to be related to.
You might be getting into this. Uh, Number of ravens. Are you going to talk about this, or can I be a nerd?
No, go for it.
So there's also like a a singular raven is actually what is considered to be a bad omen. And now that you're talking about this, I kind of understand, because if they are typically social animals and they're typically in a group, I could see where, like, oh, I saw a raven. Oh. But in like spirituality and witchcraft and shit, like different numbers of ravens actually symbolize kind of different prophecies and things. Like two
Oh,
ravens is actually a good omen. So yeah, they can be. That's like kind of an interesting misconception that a lot of people have, that a raven is like a dark omen, and it
yeah.
isn't. It isn't always, and actually pretty infrequently, unless you see one by its onesie.
Very intriguing. Yeah, I looked up some different like pieces of Raven mythology from cultures around the world. Um, I would say probably one that's especially famous is in Norse mythology. Odin has his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory,
Yeah.
that are said to, fly out, and they come back every night to whisper to him and bring him the news from Midgard, aka Earth, and let him know what's going on down there,
Spill the tea.
spilling that tea for Odin. And they are always very cool. I feel like there's a lot of very like neat art and representations
Yeah,
of those ravens.
there is for sure.
Yeah, in ancient Greece, ravens were connected to the god Apollo, who was a big god of prophecy. So they are definitely related to prophecy there. And there is a myth where Apollo sends the white raven to go spy on his lover. And when the raven came back and is like, that lover is unfaithful to you, Apollo was so mad that he scorched the raven. And that's why they are black today.
Oh, poor Raven.
Right? Don't shoot the
Don't shoot the
messenger,
messenger.
Apollo.
Yeah,
It's not the raven's fault.
that's literally the exact like verbatim. Don't scorch the
Right.
messenger.
Don't scorch the messenger. They are a bunch of ravens hanging out in the Old Testament, in the Bible. The raven is the first named bird in the Hebrew Bible, and it is
Oh,
a raven that Noah sends off the ark to look for a sign of land after all that flooding business.
huh. I don't remember that. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think that kind of ties into the idea of like knowledge and kind
Yeah.
of like other forewarnings. There are a lot of different stories about ravens amongst the indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest in America. Something that I thought was really interesting is that there are stories of both like the raven as like a creator god as well as trickster characters, and sometimes they're separate characters, but sometimes the raven is both. And I kind of like the idea of having like, a creator who is also kind of mischievous.
Yeah. Duplicitous in nature.
Yes, and this one also kind of brings back the same vibe as ancient Greece. There is a one of those kind of world origin stories where Raven is pure white, and he goes and steals the moon, stars, and fresh water from Grey Eagle to bring them to the people. But while he is carrying fire in his beak, the smoke turns his feathers black.
Oh, I do kind of. We had a like a little book in my elementary school that told a few different stories. Like one of them was that the spider, like a Azazi,
Oh, Anansi.
Anansi,
Yeah.
and then yeah, one of them was the Raven story with him
Yeah,
carrying
I
the
was reading. I
torch.
was like, this does sound familiar.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's like core memory unlocked.
Yes. Ravens are also tied into Celtic and Irish mythology. Obviously, throughout history, ravens are often associated with war since they are carrion birds and they show up when there's dead stuff around.
Mm-hmm.
But the goddess Morrigan appeared as a raven after a battle and showed up and, landed on someone's shoulder. And so I definitely, hear and see like representations of Morrigan a lot. There is
Yes.
actually one of the characters in the D&D campaign I run has a witch patron who has
Ooh.
Fey Raven as her familiar.
That's cool.
He
I
is.
love the Morgan. She's a badass.
Hmm. And in England, famously, there is the mythology around the Tower of London and the ravens, where legend has it that England will fall when there are no longer ravens at the tower, and that they have been there for hundreds of years and they must always be there. But apparently, like many historical things, this may have just been made up by Victorians.
That's one of my favorite things about like European history is a lot of it's just like weird fairy tales that everybody agreed to.
Yep. And a
I
lot of
love
times it
that.
is just the Victorians who are like, you know what would have been cool? What if we say this? And you're
What
like,
if
you
we
can't just make these things up, Victorians.
they can, then they will.
They
And they
can and
did.
they will. But I read a really interesting article about this where the official Tower of London historian um, found the first reference to kept ravens was in 1895, even though the legend describes ravens being there since the 1600s.
Hmm.
And he actually found this because he was researching, there was a tower menagerie for 600
Oh.
years that I guess became kind of was the root of the London Zoo. And so there are records of like, oh, we had lions and leopards and monkeys and hawks, but there was no record in there of having kept ravens.
Hmm.
But I mean, like it is part of the raven's natural habitat. So like there were
Right.
ravens there, like ravens existed around there, but it wasn't
They
something
just
that
didn't
like
have
the
to
tower
stay
was
there.
keeping. Yeah,
Right.
like today, they have the Raven Master whose job is to look after all of these ravens, and that
The
just was
dream,
not.
honestly.
Yeah, right.
When
It
people ask
was
me what my dream job is.
Raven Master.
Raven Master. Yeah.
It was super funny to like read like the Wikipedia article about Tower of London ravens because it has just like all of these wacky facts about the different ravens. Like I guess there's usually like 6 of them at any given time and they all have names, and so it'll be like so and so did this, and also sometimes ravens can be kicked out of the Tower of London for
Oh,
being naughty.
like permanently or just for the day?
I think permanently.
How
Like I
do they
think
keep
like
them from coming back? Birds are like very smart.
I know. Well, they must put them somewhere else because so the ravens at the Tower of London have a clipped wing, so they can't fly properly, which
Uh-huh.
is how they keep them there. So like I don't know if they like rehome them to like a bird sanctuary or something.
Okay.
It had some it just said my it cracked me up so much because it said that a raven was removed for quote behavior unbecoming of a tower resident.
So unproper.
So improper, like, oh, naughty, naughty ravens. Yeah, apparently one of them, like,
Unbecoming.
was, like, pecking on, like, TV aerials, like, on the roof and stuff, and so he got in trouble.
Unbecoming of a tower
Unbecoming
resident.
of a tower resident.
That poor Raven. He just wanted to have a good time.
Right, I love that they have, like, an ethics code for
Yeah.
ravens.
I wonder if they get read like their the expectations
Oh,
when they come
yes.
in. So there's a proper ceremony, and they're like, "Thou shalt not peck at the TV."
And obviously, we see ravens, throughout different types of literature to this day. I always think about like the ravens in Game of Thrones
Yeah, I
that
that's
are, sending
immediately where my
messages
mind went. Yeah.
around.
Well, and talk about again hooked to prophecy. The three-eyed raven is literally like a past,
Yes.
present, future bird. Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah. And I looked at a list of like all of the like characters who are named Raven. There are so
Well,
many.
that is
It's
so
just
Raven of you.
right. There's Raven in Teen Titans. I
Mhm.
think Mystique's real name is Raven.
Yes.
Um, and there are just tons and tons of characters named Raven. I have definitely been guilty of naming characters and things Raven
It's a
because
great name.
it's just a good spooky name.
If any of our listeners are named Raven, just know that I am inherently jealous of you.
Mm,
It's a really great name.
it is a pretty great name. And there is the famous riddle from Alice in Wonderland, which was how is a raven like a writing desk?
Oh yeah. See, I'm gonna tell you something about myself.
Mhm.
I saw Alice in Wonderland once when I was like a child, and I've never seen it again. I know like nothing about it.
That's fair. I
Do
don't
they
I d
answer the riddle?
So I'm gonna say I don't know if that riddle is in the movie or if it's just in the book.
Mm,
But the actual that riddle is presented in the book as a riddle with no answer. That it's like an unsolvable riddle. But in a because people were like, no, we need an answer in like a
right.
future edition. Lewis Carroll did add an answer, which is like they can both produce a few good notes because of the raven like making its like croaky noises and stuff.
Okay.
Which I'm like, this is a lame answer to this riddle. We should have
It
just left it
is.
unanswered.
Yeah, there's surely something in there about a quill, or I don't know. There's something
Right.
there.
I know. I was like, quill, feathers. I did find like some kind of like newspaper write-in thing where a bunch of people just like suggested their own answers to this riddle.
Hmm.
So I respect that. So if anyone else wants to come up with their own answer to how is a raven like a writing desk, please feel free to drop it in the comments on our
Yeah,
Instagram.
that's your homework this week, listeners, is to
Yeah.
tell us
Solve that
why
riddle.
they are the same.
Yes. And so I guess you did talk a little bit about like kind of connection of ravens to witchcraft.
Mhm.
I was just going to ask about your personal feelings on ravens and
I
how
love
if you dig them.
them. I do. I love them. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, there are um, different implications, of course, depending
Hmm.
on how under what circumstances they appear and how many of them there are. But um, no, I just think they're really beautiful and majestic too. I mean, they're there's something just in general about an animal that's like jet black that is really
Yeah.
stunning to behold, like a a panther or what black cat, whatever. They're just really beautiful. um and yeah, I mean, i I would love to go to like a, I don't know, a raven sanctuary is a thing. I doubt they're like protected species, but it'd be cool to just be like surrounded by ravens. That would be very cool.
Yeah, agreed. They are very cool. And I guess I did find out from the Audubon Society that ravens were kind of driven out of like the east and the Midwest of the United States in
Hmm.
kind of the early centuries. So like you don't really see them around where we are naturally, but that they are reclaiming a lot of their habitat. So that is good.
Come on back, ravens. We'd love to have you.
Yes. And one thing that made researching this episode more difficult than intended is there's also a football team called the Ravens.
Yeah. Un- Unfortunately for Baltimore, yes, there is.
Yes, and I did so I am enough of a sports dummy that I didn't even know that the Ravens were the Baltimore team. So when I was reading it and they were like, "Hey, the Baltimore football team is called the Ravens because of Poe." And I was like, "What?"
You said, huh?
What? I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard about a football team.
About
That it's named
football.
about Poe. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, and they also are tragically bad, just like Poe's life. Oh,
Oh,
poor
such
Ravens.
connections.
It's a
Yeah,
prophecy.
it's a
Naming your team
prophecy.
the Ravens is a prophecy that you're never going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that is an ill omen for them.
Uh,
But yeah, it was really interesting. And with like some of the cultural depictions, one of the quotes that I saw was an anthropologist suggesting that ravens kind of are this popular mythic creature because as a carrion bird, they're kind of like existing between life and death,
mm,
which I thought was interesting. That, like, we definitely have some of that draw to creatures that in some way kind of bridge that gap and intrigue, or, because we talked about in the episode about bats, the idea of them being, creatures of the night and of darkness. That's like
yeah.
both scary but also intriguing. And I am into it.
Isn't there some, I want to say it's in like Greek mythology. Isn't there some story about like that the ravens could cross to the underworld.
Ooh, I don't know, but that sounds like a thing that would be true.
I wish I could easily like I don't even know what I would Google to be like Ravens
Right, I
underworld
know.
Greeks question mark.
Question
uh,
mark?
yeah, I swear there's some kind of tale, like specific mythology, with ravens being kind of like the ones that can pass back and forth. Um,
Yeah.
hmm.
I guess in German folklore, there are some stories about ravens being like lost souls.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that would kind of make sense and kind of connect into that concept. I always find it, this is just a general note that's not necessarily about ravens, but I find it so interesting when like researching things for these episodes how much we see like similar motifs and symbols across cultures,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
just that, where everyone kind of comes up with their own version of it, but that like humans relate to parts of the natural world in similar ways, no matter where you are.
And the spiritual world, really
Hmm.
everything. I mean, that's
Yes.
I so believe that everything everyone believes, yeah, is completely connected at some point, which is we're all just humans trying to make sense out of everything, right?
Yes. For sure. Yeah, that is my thoughts on ravens. I don't
I
know. It just kind of randomly came to me as I was thinking about what I might want to talk about, and I was like, ravens are pretty cool. And then I was like, I could read some poetry. That would be fun.
No, I'm glad we visited this. I do love when I mean, one of my favorite episodes we've ever done was your bat episode. Like I love when we delve into why things are considered spooky when like it's just a bird, you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Like I
It's
find
just a
that
just a cool
really
bird.
fascinating that uh yeah, why things become kind of these iconography of spooky life.
Mhm. Well, shout out to you, ravens.
Good
We're
job.
we're we're fans. We love you.
The bird, not the
The
team.
bird, not the team. Sorry to you, football ravens. I hope.
Sorry to any of our listeners from Baltimore who I have positively shat on during this episode.
Oh man. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. We had a lovely time talking to you. And
It was a real
spoiler,
rave.
ooh, it was a rave. Um, if you would like to say hi to us in person, you have an opportunity to do that at Midsummer Scream this weekend. It's true. Midge and I, the Ghouls Night In squad, are going to be at Midsummer Scream all weekend. So if you see us there, please do come up and say hi. We would love to
Yeah,
meet you, and we might have some special little treats that you might get your hands on
we got
if
special
you say
treats.
hi. So please do so.
It's the first time Penny and I will be in the same room since September of 2021. So, or no, it was
Yes.
earlier than September.
Yeah, it was
So
August,
June or
June,
July.
July, July.
Jaloon. I think that's Jaloon. I'm almost positive.
Jaloon.
Oh
Oh, my
yeah,
favorite month.
I'm excited to see you. It's gonna be great, and I'm excited to
Yes.
hopefully see some of you as well,
Yes, it should
listeners.
be a wonderful time. So do say hi to us if you are there. And if you are not going to be there, you can also reach out by leaving a review on your favorite podcast app.
It's almost
I
exactly the same as
It's
meeting us.
basically the same because we'll read the thing that you said out loud, and I mean that probably won't happen if people meet us in person. We're not going to repeat what they said on the podcast. So in many ways this is better.
Please don't leave us an in-person review when you meet us. That
would
would
you
be
like
really
to would
strange.
you like to read us a review, Mitch?
I would love to. This one is from, I hope I'm saying this right, Shaleen P. And the review title is I love this podcast.
Hey, strong start.
Starting start. As a lover of all things creepy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky, I could listen to Midge and Penny talk about their variety of topics all day long, but especially during my daily walks. Thanks for the thanks for the content, friends. I loved the Headless Horseman and Mothman episodes.
Hey, glad we
Yay!
can keep you company on your walk.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad that we are putting out fun content that people like to listen to, because we sure as hell like to talk about it.
Yes, we do. And if you would like to keep in touch, you can find us over on the Instagram at Ghouls Night In Pod. And if you want to find me, you can find me at Penny Snark.
And if you're looking for me, you can find me across all platforms at Midge Munster.
And until next time,
Goodbye.
goodbye.